Hey, what's up everybody? It's me, Mr. Fine here, and today I bring you guys another tutorial. So this tutorial is going to be another Datastore tutorial due to the previous Datastore having many problems, and I also added more functionality to the new Datastore, and I'll be giving you guys a much more in-depth explanation on the Datastore itself. So if you guys don't have the Datastore, it's the same one as the one in the last video, but it's just updated. I will put the link in the description if you need it. And yeah, so let's get started with this Datastore. So upon inserting this model, you'll see a script called Datastore. You can put the script anywhere that it can run. You can put it in a workspace, but I prefer to put it in server script service. Next, you want to open up the contents of the Datastore, and you'll see that there are a pair of instructions in here that you can read. So you can go ahead and just take a look, quick scan. So the very first thing you want to do before anything is you want to head to game settings inside the home tab right here. You want to head to options, let's see, security. And you want to allow HTTP requests as well as enable studio access to API services. This is because if the Datastore cannot load your data, what's going to happen is it's going to kick the player in order to prevent them having to play the game knowing that their data hasn't been loaded or saving the unloaded data. So yeah, you're going to get kicked if you don't have those on in studio, but in game it should work fine. So after you've done that, you can go ahead into the module Datastore and open up those contents, and then you can quickly take a look at properties. So this is where you want to get started with editing. So the very first thing you got is save, whether or not you save data at all. So I recommend turning this to false just because you might be adding new data before the game is released. So unless your game is ready to be released, I recommend keeping that to false. As for studio save, it's kind of funky right now, so keep that to false. Auto save, you can keep it to true, as well as safe save, because what happens is once save is true, these will work. So auto save interval, keep it at 60 or higher, don't go lower, because there is a limit. And as for loading, there's nothing wrong with loading in studio and in game, so that's not really a problem. So retries is for how many times you should retry for saving and loading, you can keep this at any number, but I recommend something small, because if the Datastore didn't work for 10 times, then there's probably an issue. So it'll probably kick the player if it can't load their data. And yeah, so keep that at 10. Yield timeout, this is for getting data. So if you are a person who loves tables and you love to cache the data inside a table, this is for you. Basically, if you run the function, the method get data, and there is no data, it'll time out. So basically it'll keep trying to get data for 10 seconds, and if there's nothing, it'll just time out and return nothing. All right, prints, so there are default prints in the Datastore, and if you set this to true, obviously it'll just print those, like saying if the data was loaded, if data wasn't loaded, stuff like that. And lastly, the Datastore, this is pretty much anything is fine. Please keep it to one thing. As soon as you change this, what's going to happen is you're going to have a complete new Datastore. So just change it to one thing. So after you're done with the properties, I recommend heading to starter data, and I'm going to show you guys how to do this. So every single one of these little code blocks are considered a category. So ideally what you want is a set of categories. So for example, stats, or maybe inventory, stuff like that. And you want to basically list out all the starting data you have with that. So let's go ahead and press play. As you can see, create instance is set to true, which if that's the case, what happens is inside the player you will see a folder called stats, and with the contents inside, and it supports table stacking as well. So as you can see here, we have chicken, which is a table, chicken1, which is another table, and then some data in here. And as you can see, it creates almost the same thing. So basically a folder represents a table. So if we turn this to false, what would happen is obviously it just wouldn't create the instances, but then it's inside the table. So I'm going to be giving you guys a few examples on how to use this, as well as other use cases for this. So let's say we wanted to add something else. Let's say we wanted to add experience, right? All you have to do is type in experience equals 0. Make sure to add a comma so that you can type the next one. You don't need to if it's the last one, but it's good practice just to keep it there because it's more convenient. So let's say we added experience. If we look at players, you can see that we get experience. So this actually supports adding new stats in live servers as well. So what I mean by that is if you have something that has create instance set to true, if you were to manually add a string value or anything, a boolean, a string, or a number, and then you were to name it something with a value in it on the server side. I'm on the client side right now, but I'm just saying, if you were to do that, the system will save that value. So anything you put in there will be saved. If you add a folder, it will also be saved as a table, and then you can basically stack the folders, and that's basically a visual representation of tables. And yeah, so that's that. So you can utilize this in many ways. So one of the ways you can do this is creating a new category. All right, so this is how you create a new category. This is just simply the category name, so you can call it inventory, and then what's gonna happen is you can create instance set to true. So again, if you're not very good with tables, you can set that to true. And then let's say we have nothing inside the data, so we don't have anything in our inventory. If I press play, what's going to happen is you're going to see a folder called inventory right there. And to use this properly, all you have to do is add values. So let's go ahead and show you. So before that, I'm going to set saving to true just to show you guys that it works. So we're going to add a part. Now obviously you are probably not going to have this inside your game, but this is just an example. Now you're gonna have to write a separate script to support this system, so I'll show you how to do that. But first of all, let's add some items. So let's say we had a tool called Katana. All right, so I'm adding a tool right now, and then you would basically want to store your tool somewhere, and obviously the tool might actually have an object inside it, but this is just an example, so I'm going to keep it like that. So let's say we have a katana, all right, and then inside server storage we have a folder called tools. This is going to be our storage. We're going to have, let's say, a katana and a average sword. So let's have those two things. So I'm going to go ahead, call this a brick katana, and I'm going to make it every time you press this every time you press the part with the click detector, it's going to give you a katana tool, and it's going to give it to you inside your inventory. I mean, yeah, like literally inside your inventory. Now obviously can be dropped is set to true, so you guys are going to need a detection. If you have can be dropped set to true, you guys will have to detect when the parent changes and then remove the item from their inventory, but let's keep it to false so that they can't remove it. All right, and then basically what's going to happen is you're going to set up an event. I think it's mouse click connect function, and the first argument is player, so the player who pressed it. Oops. Okay, next, what you can do is you can simply, first of all, you can clone the tool. So local tool equals game.serverstorage.tools. And then you can actually not do, so you don't have to write katana. You can do bracket script.parent.name, because the part name is katana, and if we duplicated this part and then named the average sword, we don't have to change anything in the script. It's kind of automatic. You just have to change the part name. So once you've done that, you can clone it and then parent it to player.backpack. So this is just giving them the tool. Now if we wanted to save this, the good thing is this is the server side. All we have to do is create an object. Now you can choose anything you want, but if you guys want to be efficient and optimized, you might want to use a number value to stack them, but I'm just going to go ahead and add a bool value for the sake of the tutorial. Alright, the value is going to set to true. It doesn't really matter, as long as it exists, it should be fine. So yeah, there we go. So what's going to happen is as soon as we press that part, inside our empty inventory we should get an item as well as a tool. So let's go ahead and just press the part. So as you can see, I got myself a katana. Now obviously it's just a tool, there's nothing to it, but inside the inventory you can see I added a okay, so I accidentally forgot to name it. I think that is very important because you need some way to identify the item. So yeah, just make sure to set the name. But anyway, as you can see, it works quite fine. That's all you have to do, and it will save anything. Now same goes for destroying it. If you were to destroy this item, then next time you join you won't have it. Alright, so this is basically a folder that saves anything you add, but is limited to bool values, number values, string values, and folders. Okay, so that's one way of saving tools, but then if your tool can be dropped or destroyed, just make sure to destroy this inside the inventory. Alright, so once you've done that, let's go ahead and make one for the average sword. Alright, so we're going to call this average sword, and because our script is based off the name of the part, we don't need to change anything, and let's make this red. Right, so let's say we wanted a system that loaded in our items that are saved. So let's go ahead and add another script. Now this is a third-party script. You can directly edit the data store, but I don't recommend it because I prefer to keep my separate modules in the same same source. So let's go ahead and add another script. So what we're going to do is basically every time the player joins, we're going to load in their items. So this is an event where if a player is added, so player added connect function, we get the player, right? Next, we want to wait for child on their inventory. So local inventory equals player wait for child inventory, because this is being loaded in from another script, meaning that we should probably there's a chance that it doesn't exist when this script runs, so we want to wait for child on it. All right, next we want to get the contents. So let's say for underscore item in iPairs inventory get children. Now if you don't know what iPairs is, it's basically like pairs, but it's limited to arrays, which get children returns an array, and it's faster than pairs as well as next. So anyway, continuing on, local item equals game.serverstorage.tools. We're not gonna do katana or anything like that. Again, we want to base it off the item. Let's call this tool so we don't have two different things. Item.name. So the name is the identification for the item, so we're going to clone it, and we're going to simply just parent it to the player backpack, and if there's anything else you need to do, you can do that. So let's go ahead and just test this out. So I'm going to publish the game. I'm going to head to the world. Let's see, so right here, so I'm just going to head to this world right here, and I'm going to press play and then just test out the data store. Now make sure that saving is set to true inside properties, right, and everything like that. So let's go ahead and test it. Now for printing, you'll find the print in game if you press F9. So if you press F9, you'll have data store stuff. Oh, data store was detected for this person, loading it. Okay, so this I forgot that I was actually experimenting with this data store. So what you can do is just simply change the name or remove the data from the data store using remove async, but I'm just going to simply change the data store so I get a new one. So let's go ahead and press play. So I should have nothing at all, but as you can see, the print was really useful, or else I wouldn't know what was going on. But I believe it should have worked either way, because there were new items. But hey, so okay, that's weird. Let me make sure that this is published. I'm not sure how many times I was testing with this, but gotta make sure that this is shut down. Okay, it's not okay, there we go. Hopefully it should say the correct message now. Okay, for some reason it just keeps saying data. Wait, oh, okay, never mind. There was no data for this person. I think that's a misprint. I'll go ahead and fix that before I upload this video. But anyway, let's go ahead and press this. Get an average sword and a katana. So we have an average sword and a katana. Right, so what I'm going to do is just go ahead and rejoin the game. So I'm going to leave the game so it saves my data. And what should happen is I should still have those items. Let's see. Okay, so it didn't, I don't think, okay, let's see if it saved. Print, maybe the script's not working. Game.players .misdefine.inventory .katana. Oops. Players. Okay, it does exist. It did save. So, actually, let me press play in Studios to show you guys what's going on. So it did save. I think I just scripted it wrong, but I press play. As you can see, the items are saving in Studio now. I'm not too sure why, but as you can see in here, I have the average sword and the katana. It's saved here, but I think what happened was, when it did exist, the items inside it did not exist. So that is indeed a problem. Now what you can do is you can yield this manually by adding a weight, but that's usually considered bad practice. So another option is to do this, and then you could do child added, but then if the script were to work, it would duplicate the items. So what you want to do is you want to basically go ahead and more or less add a table. So with this, you can store the items that have already been loaded. So let's actually put this in here. So let's do table item equals true. All right, so basically we're gonna do if not. So if not table item, then so basically if the item doesn't exist in the table, then we're going to go ahead and just set it to true. And then basically we're going to do inventory.child added, and then we're going to do if not table child, then table child equals true, and then we're going to do the same thing. Now this script here is completely made to support this inventory, the one where you only add a boolean. Now obviously if you're making some sort of MMO, this wouldn't work. You're gonna need something else. All right, and oops, that is a mistake, but you're going to need something else. You're going to need something like I would say a stacked table. So for example, let's say you had items, right? Let's say you had like levels to your weapons or something like that. You need to use tables to give each item its own data. So for example, you would need, so let's say this was a sword, local sword, you would need to give it its own level, its own experience, right? And yeah, so yeah, depending on what you're doing, you're going to have to do different things, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just keeping this simple. But as you can see, Datastore is working. It's just that the other script wasn't working. Okay, so I'm gonna press play. Okay, for some reason, I don't think it's being updated. I'm going to shut down again. Or perhaps there are 2 data stores in the world? No, there isn't. Alright. Now, I'll be showing you guys how to use the data store for tables. Okay, this isn't working, but I'm going to just print stuff. Let's join the world. And then I'm going to print done. I'm just gonna quickly see what's wrong with this. Anyway, we're going to be moving on very soon. So as you can see in the main script here, there is a remote function that's being created, and basically this is for the client side. If you ever need to get the data to the client and you're not using instances, you can simply use this remote function and invoke it, and what will happen is it will return a table with all the items. Okay, so give me a second. It did work, but it didn't. Understand. Do I have the backpack disabled? Wait. Print game.players.misdefine.backpack.katana. Katana does not exist in there. That's weird. I'm just gonna quickly debug this. So it did print, it did detect the items, it just didn't give me it. Just reconnect. Okay, so as I was saying, I'm going to show you guys what the data looks like if this was turned to false. So I'm going to go to starter data, and then I'm going to simply go ahead and turn this to false. 1 sec. Okay, so I just delete this. I think what's going on is I need to put this under character added, which was my mistake. Player.character added, because I think every single time you die, the items get reset. So that is indeed a problem. Let me just put this in here, and we don't even need the table. So it was actually all working. It's just that the player respawned and then you didn't get the items. Okay, so I forgot that I was dealing with tools, and tools are kind of unique. Okay, so I'm gonna publish this one more time, and this should work. So if I press play now, it should load in the items. So let's go ahead and set this to false now, and then let's go ahead and over here. Okay, there we go. So yeah, that works. I just wrote the script wrong. It just deleted it, but it was actually working. Anyway, let's move on. Let's say we have starter data here. So let's say our level is 0. Let's say actually no, let's edit the food property. So let's say you're a table user and you wanted to edit the table. All right, so to do this, what you would need to do is, first of all, you would need to get the data store. So local data store equals require game.server-script-service.datastore.datastore. So the data store you want is this one, the module right here. All right, you don't want this one. This one is the one that will actually give you the contents. All right, so in this case, what you're going to do is local player data equals data store get data player. Alright, but before that, or actually after that, I'm going to print the player data to show you guys, because I have the new output, and that is a beta feature, and it prints tables, which is really cool. So we got that, and then let's just say we set the food player data dot stats dot food equals 200. What's going to happen is we're going to get 200 food. Now, to access the data, you're gonna have to do player data dot category. So in this case, the category is stats dot stat, or whatever it is, food equals 200, right? And to change something like sword level, same thing, player data dot stats dot sword. And then if you look here, sword dot level, so level equals 50. And then we're gonna print player data again. So after the changes, we print the player data, and then, or actually, let's just print the stats, all right? Because but I'm gonna print the player data as well, just to show you what the table looks like. So we're gonna press play, and the code is gonna run, and we're gonna pull out our output. So we got 3 tables. The first one should be the player data. So as you can see, it's an inventory, and it has items inside it, the katana and the average sword. Okay, this is kind of hard to see. I'm going to stretch this out. So this is basically what tables look like. So we added a katana and an average sword. Inside stats, you can see that we have all these stats right here, and then we have little subtables inside here, which you can open and see. So as you can see, our sword level is 1 and our food is 0. But after the changes, or actually this is only the stats part, this is without the inventory. After the changes here, you can see our food is 200 and our level is, or actually what was it? We changed the sword level. Sword level is now 50. So that's all you have to do to change data. All right. So if you're using tables, that's the way to go. And just make sure that you're not changing it on the client. So any changes you make will automatically save if you have all the properties correct. And I did have a person telling me that they want a explanation inside the main script, which I will be doing that. But if you guys are only here for the data store, this is pretty much the end of the video. But if you guys are kind of nerdy and want to know what's going on inside here, I'm here to explain it. So anyway, if you guys are still here, I'm going to be explaining this. So first of all, the services we need is Datastore service and run service. All right, those are the only 2 services we need. Next, we have the module. So we just require every single module in here, which it uses the data from here in order to run the data store. Next, we have a table called module. This is the default one. I didn't bother changing it. And then I added another table called a cache table. Basically, it's used to store data, right? So right here, data store equals data store service get data store. This is where we get our data store based on the you can see properties dot data store, which in this case it goes to properties and then gets this, which uses this. That's why all you have to do is change it from there, and then it will change it from here. All right, so the first function I got is basically a print function, but it's based off the value. So this way I don't have to do a conditional statement every time I print, right? It's all in one. And it just prints a message. Next we have start data. So this starts up the data store. Now if you didn't do any tinkering here, you can see when the player is added, it starts the data and then ends the data. So let's take a look at what that is. So when you start data, you get the player. So the player is passed into the function or the method, and then what's happening is inside this empty cache table, I'm using the player object to store a list of data. So this and there's subcategories in here. So data is literally data. So this is the player data, all right, cached on the server, ready to be saved or used, all right. And then we have laugh save and data loaded. All right, so laugh save uses os.clock. By the way, guys, that is a replacement for tick. Don't use tick anymore. It's deprecated, but they gave us os.clock, which is more accurate. Anyway, last save is used to prevent or actually for auto saving, to prevent saving when it's not the time to save. But basically this represents when this helps us basically when to save. Data loaded this is important as well. I don't want to save people's data if their data isn't loaded, or else you're gonna get an empty table, and it does happen. I had it happening before, that's why it's just there. All right. Next, the module runs load data, passing in the player. So load data is all the way down here. All right, so it's running this now. So this is just a bunch of checks inside the properties, and then finally it comes to here. So this is just the variables, right? Success, error, attempts, and data, right? So it's I use repeat here, but basically every time I repeat, I add an attempt, and basically if the attempt is bigger or equal to the retries, I just stop, right? So player, I do a quick check here, and I use a protective call. So what this does is, anytime you're doing something that has a chance of failing, you want to wrap it in a protective call, because this prevents it from erroring and pausing the entire script, as well as it can give you the error. So if not successful, then print the error message, and then we kick the player so we don't save their data. Then if it's successful, then it says data was detected for this person. Now I forgot that this here, actually, this is the print that we gotta put under here. We gotta put it under here. So that was the misprint that I was reading and thinking that it wasn't working, but it was working. So if data, so if there is data, so as you can see up here, we actually set this data value to get async using the user ID, which if there is data in there, so if there is data, then it prints this. So what's going on is so this is just creating the instances. This is just storing it inside the table. So cached table player.data equals data. So cache the data, right? It's just in there now. And then down here, so this is if there is no data, then it'll say there's no data available, then do what it needs to do. So yeah, that's that. And then at the end, very end, we set data loaded to true. So this basically enables saving. All right. Next, get data. This is the function I was talking about earlier. Basically, it's in a loop. It uses run service.step_await, and it just waits basically until, so if there's nothing inside the cache table, or the data is not loaded, then it's not going to return anything. It'll say the callback has timed out for however many seconds, and it'll just return nothing, or else it will return the player data, right? Which is what we got in the other script, but I deleted it. Right? This is just create instance. It just creates the folders. Get instance tree. This is for saving it. There's not much here. It's a recursive function. Over here, auto saving. So if autosave is set to true, then we have a loop. Right? We don't loop if there isn't one, but we loop only if autosave is on. So basically, we're looping through this table. Right, and we check if the data is loaded. If it is, and the current time minus the last save is bigger or equivalent to the autosave interval, then we reset the timer, and then we save the data. Right, and save is basically looping through the same thing and just going through everybody and kicking them and saving it. So that's that. Now let's take a look at save data. It's not that difficult. Again, more conditions. We load in the instances from the starter data, and this is finally similar to the get async right here. It's doing the same thing. It's basically doing the same thing, and that's really it for the data store. That sums up everything. So in total, the lines are around 275, fairly compacted. And yeah, so that's really it for the data store. Hopefully this cleared up a lot of things, because many people did not know how to use the data store, but I provided a table usage and a instance usage. And as for some people questioning what they have to do to save the data, all you have to do is on a server script, change the values. That's really it. There's nothing more than that, right? So hopefully this did clear up a bunch of things. Please DM me if you need help. My Discord will also be in the description below, and I'll see you guys next time.